this thing. So we'll go back and pick that up, okay?
Okay.
And then we want to bring it up to date in terms of the 35 years from when this thing came out and the relevance of it or not and everything. And about the program, you know, and the, what's the state of the world? Are we going to make it? Bucky Fuller says, utopia or oblivion? We're going to get liberated or... Welcome back to Conversations, a continuation of yesterday's program that I hear in New York with the guest being Paul Sladkus. Well, we'll introduce you all over again, Paul, and then get back into the format where we're mostly talking about me, as we did. You are the founding chairman of Milestone Communication and Good News Broadcast Corporation. Network television, PBS, a major source, has a thing, Good News Programming, is really in touch with a whole wide variety of people very familiar with television programming. And we'll remind people who may not have tuned in yesterday or something, that you had contacted me saying, Harold, why don't we do a program where you can talk about you because you're always doing that? And I thought, and I got back to you, I said, oh, okay, so that's what we're doing. We did yesterday. We were talking about, and when I was a university professor up until the year 1970, and we picked up a thing, and we're back now, and so that's sort of the context, the continuation of yesterday's program here on Tuesday, 17th of January, right?
Right.
Okay, you are the founder of that, and so what do you think? We were talking a lot of stuff. We're throwing a lot of stuff out yesterday, and what we have, of those who may have viewed, okay, and then this could be a two-part program. We were laying out a manifesto I put together as a professor, was to get some of the background, claiming of qualitative transformations blowing in the wind now, and what it is, and relating it to education, a large sense, part of an educational thing, invoking Buckminster Fuller, Marshall McLuhan, Teilhard de Chardin. You know, I got a thing here, if I may. This is, and we're going to go back to the thing that was done then. Let me, Nat, can you come in on this maybe with this thing? Let me show this. This is from my website, okay? And is this the one? Oh, here, okay, yeah. This is off my website, and this is coming up into the modern thing. And this is just on my home page, or no, this is on the context page of it. And you can see that, now don't come in too close. Keep the, Nat, go back a little bit and keep the people involved in it there, because I happen to have a picture of me in the center, you can see, and these are the 6. I don't know who you've got that you're really impressed by, or these are people that I'm inspired by, and it kind of goes like this. You've got Bucky, can you do Buckminster Fuller and draw a line down to Marshall McLuhan? Or, no, hold it back, Nat. Please do me a favor and just hold the whole scene. Hold the whole thing. Now you show down to Marshall McLuhan. You do it, Paul, will you?
Okay.
You got Bucky Fuller.
You have Marshall.
No, show a connection between them.
Okay.
There, and then over to Teilhard de Chardin. Okay, and then up to Fuller. That's sort of people that are concerned with comprehensive. Chardin begins to move over into some of the, with the omega point, convergence, and he was a Jesuit and trying to make a connection with science and Christianity. He was a Jesuit and so forth. And then do the other one. If you go with Louis Kelso at the bottom, and then you go up to the right to Ray Kurzweil, and then over to Muammar Gaddafi, which is a lot of people are strange, and then down there. So that's the second. That's more geared toward things that are thought of as being political, economic. Kelso's got an economic system that we're going to be talking some about. We only barely mentioned, I knew about Kelso back in 1970 when we were doing that, but these are the 6 that I think might have something that's really relevant to the organization of Spaceship Earth in a way, and for whatever it's worth. And then down at the bottom I got 2 ideas. That's the thing saying, that's a link you could go to that that we've transcended scarcity, and also that we need to have a new economic system that I don't see very much evidence of in the normal news and so forth, or the way the world is perceived. And then the other is public access television within a world systems pattern of information. Because if I may, we're going to be talking the second 35-year loop we introduced in this thing that we'll get back to in a minute, the Paleo-Synergetic era, which I claimed began in 1970, 35 years from the time I was born. And now we're closing quotes, I would say, I'll make a second 35-year, we are about to be introduced, I propose, to the synergetic era, and that we're coming to a time of qualitative transformation in the evolution of universal consciousness, full-blown, that we're about to realize a qualitative change that is blowing in the wind now. So that's part of the linkage with the future, the context that you and I are sitting talking now. Do you feel sometimes that we're at a time of a qualitative or a liberating context, or do you have a longer-term sweep and sense of history that this is like, I have a sense we're about to lead a qualitative change in terms of our time. People maybe felt that way in the 13th century or something, but that there's a qualitative change that is imminent or called for to stave off possible nuclear annihilation of the species or weapons, or something on the adverse side existentially significant that would be like a liberating moment in the evolution of affairs. Are you positive? Okay. I know you've got Good News Broadcasting. You're positively inclined toward think about the human condition, and you don't think you're being Pollyannish in that sense?
Well, no, my belief is I'm very positive on humanity. I'm a believer that that through love and our desire to live in a happier, larger way, in the sense of goodness, that the world is actually I think that the world is very good right now.
Okay.
And that most of the world is living in peace. It's a peaceful world. In my analysis of the world, people of the world, the Homo sapien that we spoke about yesterday, and that there is a few people in the world who are not living in a peaceful way, but are willing to have a physical battle with you of some sort, as opposed to a communication of likes and dislikes. They'll pop you in the head. But I think it's very, very, very few compared to the 6.5 billion. It's a small number. It's definitely not the majority. It's a minority.
Okay. Okay. So
the world is, most of the people are living in peace.
So
I think if we think more about it, and our media promotes the positiveness of it, and that we start to, even through the terrorists, which are very few. I talked to Peter Bergen this morning, CNN analyst. He said maybe 2,000 people are following,
Bin Laden,
and maybe are tens of thousands, but that's still not 6.5 billion.
Yeah.
And so.
Okay, so we have a different take.
That's my take.
Yeah, right. So that's one of the great things.
GoodNewsBroadcast.com.
Yeah, what else is it going to be on Good News Broadcast?
The world is doing
Okay, good. Now that's your take, okay, but now my take is if I were Nick the Greek, I would think we're probably going to destroy the whole planet. That's the odds-on thing. If something doesn't happen, we need a change. You think that we're in a course where we're on a glide path to... Okay, anyway, we were talking last time, let's go through this thing.
But this is a show about Harold and his thinking. I just would like to add one thing at this moment, because what I'm very impressed. First, I'm always very impressed with Harold and his thought process. And what we had done yesterday was talk about your first 35 years. We went back to your college and educational, your family and so on and so forth. A lot of nice things. Right. And your teaching, and we kind of worked our way up until, as a professor, you had published a manifesto, and we went through part of the manifesto yesterday. But I think what's quite interesting enough for when I had contacted you and said, I'd love to interview you.
Yeah, this is the first time anybody's asked me.
What I think is really interesting here, because I didn't know what you were going to do in this period of time, but obviously you started to think about what's important to me, and this manifesto is important to you, which is in essence 1970, so it's 35 years old. We're going to be reading a document of 35 years ago, and your perspective 35 years ago from what I've heard so far, is how you feel today.
Yeah, it does. It ties, and it goes in two loops. And this is a thing that was done. And people who may have viewed, this was a newspaper we put out in 1930 and 1970. And I'm of a mind that there is an awakening needed, that if we go on the way we are now, the gods are. If there's not a qualitative change in consciousness and the trend that's in the way now, that we're heading for disaster, because we do not have vision among our leadership. Not only our political leadership, our business leadership, but more to the point, our intellectual leadership is not providing a vision of what is required by the zeitgeist for major liberating change. I do not see the world as a great liberated place. I see it largely as a place of economic wage slavery, and the same continuation with a few people who own all the assets, have all the power, exercising authoritarian control over the masses, either through manipulation or through coercion or through force, the same as it was in the Roman days, except a little bit moderated. So we have a different take on things. That's okay.
But you have some good ideas here in your manifesto.
Yeah, absolutely. We have some good ideas, and also it's got some problems. Now, let's go. Maybe we can come in. This is the thing people will remember. This is the manifesto. This was a rap session we turned out at New Paltz University when I was a professor, and we've gone through the thing about how they should set up a new economic context, the university, the intellectual seat of knowledge. I see it as corrupted, that it's defense contracts bought and paid for. People are not really coming forth with the vision that's required, and we lavish huge amounts of support upon an institution of highly specialized people who simply have not been able to come up yet with a vision that's required by the zeitgeist. That's my thing. A vision is some sort of a qualitative transformation. We had some, Bucky Fuller, McLuhan, some of these people that were picking it up in the wind in 1970, but we haven't picked up on that. We've just retreated back into a thing. But this is talking about what was going on in terms of the evolution of universal consciousness, and we decided to go over this really quickly. So Nat, if you can come in, let's go through this quick, and then get up to the moment. So this is a thing. This is the text. And these are, a friend of mine did these line drawings, and this is essentially what's being said in the text. And we got up to the point where the university should become a free place rather than a place of behavioral psychology, training people to fit into bureaucratic systems, which are essentially fascistic in my view, including the corporate structure and so forth, and very atrophying of human capability in terms of the ability of everyone being involved in their full capability is so far from that. But so primordial, and here we're going again. This is a summation of what's being said in this longer rap. And let's go through it. We'll go through quick, and then we'll come around to these things here. Primordial man, coming out of 200,000 years ago, was ecologically in touch. I'm going to see if I can see. Is that what that says? Was, let's put it, primordial man was ecologically in touch with the environment. We were in touch as we wandered multi-sensorial. It came the invention of tools. We were actually expelled. We called it the Adam and Eve myths and things like that, expelled from nature as we began to extend our consciousness and knowledge. We begin to extend our consciousness disproportionately into the environment. We were reflective. We can extend our capability through the use of tools and technology uniquely to the other creatures in terms of the evolution. Birds make nests, beavers make dams, but we really can extend our consciousness into the environment in the form of technology. Effective tools created sensorial disequilibrium. This is sort of coming off McLuhan. I used to visit with McLuhan every spring in around 1970. He had a good take on things. He was wired, interesting. He had James Joyce reading of things like that. History is a nightmare from which I'm attempting to awaken. It was one of the best lines. We can maybe get a quote from that, but one of the scholars. And we create sensorial disequilibrium when we disproportionately extend our consciousness in a different way. McLuhan thought that the phonetic alphabet was largely responsible for the metaphor for organizing Western civilization. creating linear thinking and that. He was really interesting and so forth. But, and disproportionate sensorial closure, it closes it also. And it says, we are now being restored, that is at the end of 200,000 years, this is the assumption, we are now being restored to a vibratory state in the universe, that is humanity is, as we extend our central nervous system into the environment through the computers, communication capability. We're coming to the end of 200,000 years of human history, and we're about to come into a new relationship in the universe, transcendent to what we've been throughout the evolutionary process, if we make it. We're in the womb, we're going to leave the womb. It calls for an engagement of the whole of the system in a liberated way that I see very little evidence of therefore setting up that context now and everything. But anyway, imbalance is greatest in recent history. Computers and satellites are extensions of man's consciousness. Okay? Complete sensorial closure. We are now being rejoined to nature cosmically. We were embedded in nature. We're now being rejoined with nature and at a cosmic level, transcendent to our sojourn on this planet as species, Homo sapiens sapien. We are going to be, if we make it, which is really an open question, it's a synergy. If we can realize a liberated humanity, which I do not see much evidence of now, seeing the world the way I see it as a big, you know, it's got to have huge change, a liberation. Then we will be synergistically, or synergies of behavioral systems unpredicted by the sum of the parts. There's something resonatingly more than the sum of the parts. Fuller introduced that term to scientists, 5,000 of them, and nobody really kind of knew what he was talking about. It's now on every ad agency's lips with the, you know, and everything. But it is the behavior system. So that the relationship to a higher level of consciousness will be the result of a liberated humanity, like an orchestra where everyone is playing their own individualized, liberated context of full realization of their potentiality. There will be a synergy, a resonancy that will inter-accommodate us to the universe. That's my sense. It will not be a physical connection to another level. It will be a transcendent, just as there was Australopithecine, Homo habilis, Homo sapien. There will be another relationship. We will leave the womb. We'll be in touch with the cosmos at another level. We're at the end of the human system. At the same time, we have the weapon systems that make it possible for us to not realize the potentiality of the time in a design sense, not find a way of liberating humanity, but only expressing the same organizing principles that have held us together throughout the period of scarcity, which is all our institutions were formulated within a context where there was not enough. It's assumed ipso facto that there never can be enough. Human nature is inherently unable to be satisfied with anything unless, you know, that kind of thing. That's the assumption. And so it gets close quotes on human drama, the alienated chapter, perhaps. That is, if we make it. Again, my bet would be we're not going to, but that's another thing. Universal intelligent purpose in universe would be put into a higher level of consciousness.
Can I ask you a question?
Uh-huh.
What do you think the cavemen thought? Do you think the cavemen thought they were going to make it when somebody finally took a big something and batted it over someone's head?
No, because
what do you think they thought?
I don't think they were thinking very much. They had self-reflective consciousness, I think. There was a capability of that. There was no way for them to think about that because we had a long, long trail of winding up Mount Sisyphus to get to where we are today. Where we are today is not in a way comparison to where we were, because for no other reason it's being signaled in the evolution of consciousness that we do now have, Paul, weapon systems that at the behest of one person pushing a button marked red would destroy the whole species. Caveman could destroy his neighbor, the mastodon or something, or we got to a point, even in as recently as 1945, we could not do that. We could do firebomb Dresden, We could drop bombs. We could destroy the other people in a spasm of hatred like was going on. Racism, Nazis, all kinds of things. We could do that. But we were protected in our impotence in a way since 1970s, about the time when we crossed the line where we now have the ability to wipe out the whole species, apparently possibly even life. That's a potentiality that we've simply not had. We've been gestating. Okay, do you understand?
Yeah,
That's
I
a
understand what you're
qualitative
saying.
existential challenge. Now, the point is, the averse side of that existential reality, the destructive capability, and there's a huge history that indicates that the reverse side of that has something to do with a capability that exists that we seem have no ability to realize, or what would it be? My contention in this, that we were, as Mr. Fuller and others, Booksh and others, that we were collectively transcending as an ontologic or as a reality, we were transcending a condition out of which we had emerged, where there were always overwhelmingly, in terms of our capability, more, and this is not just eating, but that's a large part, of course, but this is in understanding things, knowing things, extensions of knowledge and that sort of thing. We were always in a condition of scarcity. There's not nearly enough. That's been the condition in which we evolved. That's been the condition of which the natural selection process, the vast majority of species died out. I mean, that's been the condition. So what there is that we are perhaps now, Mr. Fuller, others, is a positive sign, but there's very little evidence that anybody's picking up on it. We have transcended, at a design level at least, the capability, scarcity as an ontologic reality. But all of our institutions were formulated within a context of scarcity. So our notions of human nature, they're all authoritarian. The systems are not liberating. The systems are not assuming liberation. Their systems are assuming chosen people all over the place who think they've got their upside, the upside. We got disequilibrium between the capability of everybody in the world. The systems are not in place and are not able to be in place. They're stumbling all over themselves, and they call people who resist that terrorists in the same old way that George III called George Washington a terrorist, and the emperors of Rome or Tito was called a terrorist by the Nazis, the same old thing. Those same old systems are still operative, and there's no vision. That's exactly the point. Not only from the political or the business, you wouldn't expect it. They will be the last, and that's understandable. It makes sense. The ones we listen to on the television and that sort of thing, they are going to be the last to see the thing. But one of the promises, if we're transcending scarcity, is that we can have a system that's going to involve everybody in the end, and you do not, like in 1789, have to cut off the head of the person operating the oppressive system which a revolutionary change challenges. So we're going to be able to have everybody involved on their own terms if we make it, but those people that are the leaders don't have the vision, and more distressing, the intellectuals do not have a vision of liberation that relates and relates to the real world of politics and economics and so forth. We don't have any vision. They're just reifying all the old oppressive institutions and assumptions, in my view. But anyway, but we do have, but this is happening at a design level.
And who has the, I've done some stories on global security and on the nuclear or something, but who has a button that can blow up the whole world?
Well, you've got any number of people who could do it, increasing numbers of people who could set it off with the hatred and so forth, that if it's interlocking. It used to be bipolar. Now you've got it to where these weapon systems are there. Could be somebody in Rawalpindi might do it, or it might be somebody in Delhi, it might be somebody in Tel Aviv or something, or it might be somebody who pushes the button that sets off a chain reaction of some sort of thing against a destructive thing that can't be possibly tolerated, that lets loose the weapons that do exist now. They have not existed in the past. We couldn't do it in 1945. We could try.
Someone's going to be mad at somebody else, and
Yeah.
someone's going to go back to somebody else, and somebody else is going to go to somebody else.
Yeah, like
But
Sarajevo in the First World War. There's alliances that are there, and they're juggling these weapons. They're now building bunker buster atomic weapons, tactical nuclear weapons. The terrorist is now Iran. Iran is the terrorist. We bombed the thing, and you can't allow the people to develop because they might, you know, all of the geopolitical stuff is still going on the same assumptions of out of history. It's no much different, a little moderated from when it was in Imperial Rome or in the kings and the crowned heads of Europe. You got a few people own all the assets, about 5% own all the assets and have all the wealth, set the template, and everybody else really doesn't matter except masses of people to be manipulated through public opinion, election campaigns. The election process it's just bribery and that kind of thing, and all that kind of thing is true. So we don't have a system that is aimed at liberating people from their roles. Anyway.
Okay.
But there's a potentiality, perhaps, that we will be able to see a liberation where people will be really democratically, economically, and so forth, and empowered in order to be democratically freed from the oppressive institutions is one of the promises of this manifesto and of the time in which we live, I would say. Anyway, let's go on.
It's brotherly and sisterly, my Pollyanna.
Well, I do not say it's not there, but I just don't see it. I don't see it anywhere. Now, that may be my fault.
Well, I don't know if I necessarily see it exactly right now, but I see it as a goal for humanity.
Which? The liberation?
The brotherhood, sisterhood kind of.
Why? Why should they?
Why not?
You've got a few people who control things that don't want that. They can't understand that. Well, there are people that do not want that because they... anyway, let's not get into that. Okay. So anyway, now we got another level of... See, what I'm talking about is not the little change, not the Democrats or the good guys or the social Democrats or something changing and that and getting a flat tax from the little thing. I'm talking about the big thing, a big change, a big, like leaving the womb, like speciating. And that's coming out of the context short of spiritual. It's not spiritual, but it's a technological imperative of the result of our own success technologically and in a design sense. And it's a responsibility that simply economically, politically, organizationally, systems that allow for a liberated human condition and so forth simply do not exist.
And so there's nobody that could help to make that happen?
No, we could try. No, I think there are places where you could try. Fuller was one. These people were. The educational system is a whorehouse. I mean, they're all defense contracts. It's all set by this thing, and they're all trying to get defense contracts. They're all specialized out. Where's Voltaire? Where are the vision? Where are the big thought people that come up with something? Fuller had something. Some people did. But where are they now? They're all sucking. I mean, you know, it's very worrying that there is no vision. For want of vision, people could perish. It's just reifying old-fashioned ideas coming out of history with no vision of a transformation that the zeitgeist and the reality not only calls for, requires if we're going to make it, and the vision is practically nowhere to be seen in terms of how we're going to do things. We can talk about it. Let's go through. Let's go through. Fear and intent, but we're transcending it. About to be made clear, primordial morning. This is all about consciousness. Let's take these down, okay, and then get to the modern. We already have a surplus. This is the assumption out of the manifesto of the synergetic era. We transcended scarcity. The projection of this manifesto I put out in 1970 is that at a design level, we had transcended scarcity as an ontologic reality. Now realize, 200,000 years ontologically, in terms of reality, we lived in a condition where there always were overwhelmingly more have-nots than haves. That had been, 200,000 years is a long time. And then there's all kinds of oppressive systems built in place. If there's not enough, you better get something for you and your tribe. And so that kind of thing. And we were transcending that in terms of our technological capability to provide life support in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I don't know. See, it's a traditional source of government and authority are hampered. The traditional systems are oppressive.
I agree.
Educational systems are oppressive. Can you agree with that? Can you
yeah,
agree
I can
that
agree
teachers are like prison guards? Can you agree that the corporation is oppressive and maybe even fascistic? The senior vice president tells them what to do. They have this thing. It's a power relationship, and it's all done in order. And they go, and the students go to school in order to get a chance to get a career where they can maybe get some money to buy food to eat. They're not liberated.
Sure, in certain
situations. You understand
situations.
what I'm saying?
No, I
Liberated
understand.
would be liberated.
I understand.
Now, they don't have a thing set. They don't have a system in place with what's required by the zeitgeist if you're going to have a liberated planet rather than an oppressive one out of which we're coming to just reifying or reinstituting or reestablishing and can only deal in terms of the historically inherited systems that are out of date. So educationally, and the major premise here is against the intellectual community. You don't have any comprehensivists. You don't have comprehensivists that are thinking about the whole pattern. They're all specialized out, co-opted, just like divide and conquer. They're writing a dissertation on some subject that keeps them totally out of thinking about anything other than their dissertation, and they're totally co-opted, and it's run by a few people who have the control, and the people who have the control do not have any vision. And you wouldn't expect them to. The intellectuals should, and the people may be getting it. That's one of the promises. Anyway, Dawn Earning must be named. It called Synergy Behavior Systems Unpredicted by the Parts. 1970, actually in late 1970, was the beginning of what's called the Paleosynergetic era. That is, 1970, we were having the capability, design capability, for the first time, where adequately involved we could understand we were having a rendezvous with the percentage of the world population that could be realistically seen to be haves in terms of have-nots, in terms of our abstract technological capability of providing life support. Introducing a 35-year, I said in this in 1930, this is background to what was going on, about a 35-year period of imminent crisis to all our human institutions that we've been living through. We've been living through that. And this was all done before there was a computer or anything. This is just an extension of a longer-term thing. The computer is an extension of that. And we're coming now in the second 35-year loop they're talking about. 1970 is, in the fullness of time, going to be a candidate to be year one. We transcend scarcity. That idea at a design level is so huge, and it is never, ever mentioned. Do you notice? Everybody assumes that is ipso facto absurd. There can never be enough, because it runs counter to the idea behind all of our institutions out of which we're emerging from history. So it takes a while. So it's a big change. If we are transcending scarcity, one of the luxuries is everybody is going to have to be involved in this. Everybody's going to have to be involved in a synergy behavior systems unpredicted by the sum of the parts. And 100 trillion cells in an organism, they all count. Everybody's going to be liberated. If we're going to make it, we tested, in my view, it will be the resonancy vibes, or the resonancy, guys jamming, there's a resonancy, and it's a resonancy. String theory says there's a resonancy. Only, that's all that exists in the universe is resonancy. There will be, if we make it and we don't destroy the whole thing in a spasm of hatred, we can't stand to have you take our land or whatever would set it up. There's a million places it could go. You're a terrorist and all that kind of stuff, and the rationales and everything, that it would be everybody. Like in an orchestra, everybody's playing and everybody's involved and everybody matters and everybody's got an identity, everybody's liberated, and you have an orchestra playing. It will be peace a chance and a way of realizing it. Not just peace. You can't just surround yourself and say peace. You got to have some leadership. You got to have a system in place. You got to, and we do not have that.
I agree.
We have an oppressive system.
We got
and it's reifying
a lot
itself.
of segregated countries.
Yeah, and that kind of thing. So you got to have but it will be on the whole of the planet that everybody is playing their full toot boogie on whatever their instrument is in a liberated way, rather than some oppressive person within a system manipulated by some people. And if we do that, there will be a resonancy more than the sum of a liberated humanity, like a bodhisattva idea where everybody is involved. There will be a liberating resonancy more than the sum of the parts. And we can't know what that is this side of leaving the womb to that another level of consciousness. All these spirituality things are trying to pry what that thing is out there. We won't know unless we make it. Odds are we're not going to make it because we do not have vision. Now this is maybe trying to bring some vision. Fuller was. Some of the comprehensive. But the intellectuals, the academics, it's a whorehouse. All bowing down to money. Everything's bowing down to money and these kind of things now on both sides. You notice political process is all just bought, paid for. Best Congress money can buy. Best university money can buy. It's all built in, you know, that's sort of, there's some hope in public access maybe. Would you understand? They're attacking that now. Anyway, let's get through this quick. So it's just, this was a view of a university, but I would like it to be that this is also stuff that relates. This was from 1970. This related to the way a university should be done, with no authoritarian, no grades, no forcing you to do this, no forcing you to do that, nothing like that. Just learning. You're learning and so forth. And you move to create, okay, well, okay, and, okay, let's just get rid of this, or just bring it down. Okay. This is education, importance of it, that happens to be my son. Widespread son's needs for change, no enemy except ignorance. I don't see an enemy, we're all wrapped up in this, and those people that are holding on to the old systems in the end should not be harmed. If we're in a transcending scarcity context, one of the things that we're allowed is that they will be able to be involved in the end in a process that's going to come from the people, my sense. It's going to come from a mass who have been all throughout human history ignored and shunned and so forth, and are still being shunned. You got the half the population of the world exists on $2 a day. The trends are wrong. The people don't matter. They're just to be manipulated by that. And so it's going to come from the masses, liberating of the masses. But the real revolution isn't one where you overthrow the bad guys like Louis XVI in 1789. The real revolution will come where you're going to have a system of organization understanding so comprehensively appropriate to the evolution of universal consciousness that it will not only be liberating of the masses and ecology, the whole system, the mass of the order rather than just the few, but will able to be understood by and gone along with by those who've been responsible for the historically inherited institutions, the so-called leaders, in the end, but they'll be the last. They'll be the last to go. And they're the only ones we listen to because they bought all the power.
I agree
so
100%.
Okay, so we need some change.
100%.
It's going to come from the masses. Okay?
I agree.
So it's a big change.
The
intellectuals are falling down on the job. The intellectuals. And so the universities, it's a whorehouse, you know, and they're all falling down in specialized kind of things they're doing. There's no comprehensive thinking about what's going on or a sense of vision. So this is a call that the university should become a design center, and this in turn can be extrapolated. This goes back, new economic assumptions. Then we begin to start picking up a Louis Kelso down here. That's a economic system that gets beyond labor theory of value that's got us all bent out of shape on this planet and so forth that we could get to. But coming off Bucky Fuller. And so this was a manifesto to make the universities a design center and relevant to as a model to universities around the world. Let's do it, I said, and of course I found out that most of the professors, what they're really interested in is making sure that they get that line of income so they can meet the mortgage and buy their SUV. Okay? That's our intellectual class. That's really what they're interested in, is the career path that gives them a chance to. Okay, never mind. So this is the end. This is just don't be intimidated. This was from 1970.
Right.
October 12th, 1970 is very likely to be measured as the new year in the long fullness of time. And we're now coming full term. And then this is a continuous, and happily to say NYPC and the New York PC is going to help us get this on our website. We have a I have a website. And so let's just get that out of the way now. So that's the thing. This is from 35 years ago.
That's a nice thing to have well, I don't know, you had the same thoughts as you had, or the same belief at this moment. 35 years later, they still hold up in you, for you, and how you see the world about.
Yeah. Well, I said then, 35 years ago, this was nothing there. I said 35 years ago that it was going to be about 30, 35 years, the paleo-synergetic. We're coming now to a realization of the synergetic era in my calculus of things. And we're coming to that probably this year, 2006. That's what it figures. And what's happened is we've had this, and this thing about I realized the other day, this idea of academia, that's what's about intellectually understanding and responsibility for design. We don't have it. It's in the media, and it's to my way of thinking. And if it's going to emerge, the ideas that are required, it's not going to come out of the traditional media, which is bought and paid for by the systems that are in place and reifying themselves and simply don't have vision other than an oppressive context, which has been the historical context. If it comes, and the vision comes, and it's at a level of design, it's not really responsibility for the historically inherited institution, the corporation, and that sort of the things that are in place. It's not going to come. That's going to be a lag, what they call in business, a lagging indicator. They're going to be the last to see it. We look to them for leaders. They will be the last to see it. Okay? If it comes, in my estimation, it's going to come from the extended, now we have the internet coming, and we now have, I got into public access. I got the third porta pack off the boat where an individual could make a television program. So you've got a media context, multimedia, multisensorial, not linear context, which is the context in which communication can take place, and started doing programs with people, you know. So I did that about 1969. They had this thing called public access. There wasn't any public access then. It was just you did it. And I went out and got it started doing senators and people and all kinds of people, intellectuals. We got one with Bucky Fuller, and some of these people. We got to capture some of the light from those times and not let it just be put out of place. And then there came this public access movement. I think there's maybe hope in public access. Public access is now under threat, as you understand. Public access is where we are. And here you can come and produce a program. It's not corporate. It's not in the money-making context by which the established media are set. So it relates to like the open source movement within the internet, and coming to the aid of public access, in a sense, is the non-profit-making, money-making context of the internet. Is this open source movement, which is in keeping with the access movement that began about 1970, and then it began to have like we're here. And I think it'll be in that context where you're not doing things in terms of the established media, but they're going to, it's there, that the possibility might be that a design capability or the new ideas might emerge from public intellectuals and people who are thinking, and from the folks who've never counted, they're going to maybe count. And they're maybe getting their act together now to where they can present a threat. It has to be seen as a threat in a way because it's got to be something to shake the people up. There's no vision. They have no vision. They're just going to oppress and so on. So there's going to be seen as a threat. Terrorists, they'll be called, or something, I suppose, by the people. But what it is there's going to be a vision coming that maybe will be able to be inclusive of everyone, But you're not going to have the people who are just going to continue to operate in terms of exploiting people all over the place, people of less advantage and that, and just exploiting them, not liberating them. That won't be able to wash. So you're likely to have a movement against the established order, and rightfully so. And that might create a context where there will be an alternative to the assumptions by which the planet is run now. Just saw Jeffrey Sachs talking about his shock therapy in Russia and these kind of ideas. Even the ideas in the realm of economics, there are no real ideas that relate to a liberated order. The only possible one might be Muammar. Did we show the thing about Muammar Gaddafi?
You showed the picture of
Yeah, he might have a system that makes sense. The thing in China is oppressive. The thing here is oppressive. The thing here, all the assets are owned by a few. It's concentrated like that. Everybody's a wage slave by and large. You have some of these movements that are not related to that. So we have an alternative context that might be emerging within the realm of the open source, public access television. They're beginning to feel their voice, and that might be able to be a source where it would come. So it's good to talk here in public access. But that's where the vision would most likely come from in the impetus, because that's in touch with the people. And the people have never counted, realized, but they do. And it might come, and there's hope in that, but they're now out to do that in.
Yeah, that's a big concern. I mean, Harold Channer's been here since 1970. That's 35, 36?
Yeah, it's two loops, 35
36
and
years
35.
You've been working in essence and bringing programs to the world that you feel very committed to, and people of the world that you wanted the world to hear their thinking and their thought process.
Well, I wanted to learn. It wasn't just that. If I may, I wasn't just interviewing I wasn't just a pretty face to let them have their say. I wanted to have inter-exchange and try to influence things. I'm not just a pretty face. I got some ideas. The people in Access have ideas. They're not just there to say, tell us about your story, Mr. Corporate President. And then 25 minutes down the line, but that's really good, and then take the check. You know, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but you were sharing, you believed enough to share what they had in collaboration with you, whether you had some thoughts to share with them. You know, it's a mutual relationship.
And we were able to do a piece. We were able to do a piece with Bucky Fuller. He was major.
And many other people.
And then some others. Muammar Gaddafi we did. I think there's hope in Muammar Gaddafi. There they've questioned the labor theory of value, which underpins economic theory, which in turn informs political theory, which is out of date. I think you're going to have some alternative way of distributing income to people other than wage slavery, which is the case now, because the cyber nation is coming, and the carbon 60 and the thing that it's going like this. They're going to have to set the people free. And, you know, they're going to have to let the people go. The people are not free, and they're not, you know, they're going to have to set it. So the economic theory falls down. There's no one there, not Schumpeter, not Van Hayek, not Friedman, not whoever it is that forms the Democratic Republican Convention, political parties in this world power, not the people who set up the International Monetary. Even Keynes said we're going to be facing technologically induced unemployment. We have a capability of providing an overwhelming abundance for everybody, and we do not have any systems in place that are allowing to do what we're capable of doing, because we're filtering it all through this system that is essentially oppressive and outdated. So we need a new economic system to set the people free, and to have people be free, affluently leisured, essentially is what they're going to have to be. They have no way of doing it, because it's all based on outmoded ideas, savings, past savings, deficit, that kind of thing. They don't have an economic vision. Louis Kelso is the only thing I can see, and he ties into Muammar Gaddafi. Muammar Gaddafi's Libya, you can set up and they won't allow you to hire anybody. You can't hire people in a corporate sense, where you have all these wage slaves in the West and you can't hire any. Everybody has to be an owner of the company and have an income flow as an owner of it, partners. Now that's something that might be getting people into an order, But that's, Louis Kelso did that, but he's been ignored by and large by the people that are just using the old system. And it's, so we don't have an economic system that makes place. And so you want to try and get those ideas out. In the idea that this is outside the norm, this is from a comprehensive context, not from a specialized context. The economists will tell you why what you're saying doesn't make sense according to how many angels can dance on the head of an economic chart and so forth. They have special, that kind of thing to reify it. So that's what I'm saying. There's a revolution coming. I showed this book before, Massive Change. This is a good book. This is the design science revolution. Fuller never was political. He always said, set up an environment that can let the people become, the best can come out by having good design rather than trying to change people, you know. But in that sense of design is not just like fashion design or something like that, or design jewelry or design of cars. I mean, that's also design templates for, let's say, economic theory. That's for political thinking. That's for, you know, a design science that goes into taking some of these people, McLuhan, Fuller, some of these other people. And what it becomes, like I was talking about university as a design center, but now you've got you got public access television, which is great. You got about 3,000 places spreading around the world, Vox Populi. People are coming in. People are getting hip, as they say. They're getting censored. They're opening it up to people where they can do something and there's no money involved. You can just do it in terms of the stuff that's being made available to them. Get rid of that entry barrier where you have to have a huge amount of money to get anything done in a media context. Make it available to the people. People's voice can start raising. People can share things. That's really a good context that's possibly there. And then that's related to the open source, non-commercial orientation of the internet, which is really growing now. Lessing out of Stanford and all these kind of things that are underpinning that internet development that's coming. And all of that's coming. And the basis of the internet is going to become carbon-60, Buckminster-Fullerene. It's the basis of all nanotechnology. And the trend is going, they can't deny it much longer. The trend is going like that, and it's going like that, L-shape, in terms of our capability and the ability to do things. So they're not going to be able to keep the oppressive systems in place. They just passed a law to make it hard to do bankruptcy for the people. Well, no, because you do not see, okay, at a design level, right. Yeah. Now, they'll close that down. They're going to close that down. They're going to close that down for the people. They're trying serious to close public access, because that's just nonsense like me talking now. That's nonsense that doesn't really understand it. It's okay that a few people own all the assets and the corporations are in place and everybody's up for sale. It's a big whorehouse. You know, so you know, they don't, you know, it may be there's that attempt to do that, and but we're coming to a time of the zeitgeist requires that there be vision of liberation of everybody and every creature, and it's there and it's coming, and it's Lord Keynes said that we are being confronted with technological unemployment of a huge order. We got a capability of providing overwhelming surplus. We can take care of the problems, including ecological problems. We can clean up the order. But all of the financial institutions and the systems are in place to make the rich richer, the powerful more powerful. None are designed to make the people richer or more powerful. None, anywhere. It's all just a few, just like it was in the feudal order, as far as you can see, don't you think? I mean, I don't quite see how, you know, and so there's an educational process. And so as this was educational in terms of trying to find some sort of, at a university level, questioning the specialists and that sort of thing, and their bottom line considerations of security and safety and all that, rather than thinking big or comprehensive or at the interface where things happen. So for humanity. So this model from 35 years ago relates to the world in a real sense, and relates to the internet. And the internet is now, if we can keep it, the internet is like a gigantic autodidactic university. Why would anybody go in except to get some career move or some such thing like that, which is motivating most people, I understand. But why would anybody go there to learn when you've got the whole world is now coming to you through the autodidact? So the ideas of this university, the liberation of the university for people to be interested in things comprehensively, is now becoming characteristic of the internet. And I saw a combination of the two, and you might think of calling the internet, or at least the not open source part of it, autodidact, self-teaching, self-educating university. And so you could challenge the universities and so forth to maybe then they will start thinking about the ideas that are really relevant and that are needed. That's all. But I don't think we're there, Paul. Well, I don't see how you can be optimistic. I don't see it except as potential. And so,
well, I guess, you know, I'm positive because we are in a .com university, and we're promoting positive or showing positive and showing the world and doing good things in the world. So that optimism all day long. I'm stressed out because I have too much good news because I'm exhausted from taking so many people's wonderful good news and sharing it, which is great news for the world, right? And because we're, in essence, and the television and the web is merged together, so that's good news also, that you'll be watching your web on your TV. It'll only need one TV. And so I see the web being a wonderful worldwide source to do all the good kinds of things that I think your whole manifesto speaks of.
Well, I hope so. I wish I could see it.
I see it.
Okay.
I'm glad you do. I'm in it. So I can see from what I'm in and from the people that are on good news.
You think there should be allowed such a thing as public access where people can have a say?
I think public access is a wonderful.
Would you support it?
I'm right here, right now, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's true. You are, in fact. You
Seeing
said
is
why don't you
believing.
come out and talk about it? Yeah.
I'm right here.
Now you're going to do a public. You're going to do a public relations representation for the Chinese Communist government. And the new year now, aren't you now? Well, you're going to support that gang that are running things in there.
Well,
and you're going to support the corporate-run United States of America system, who make possible. That sort of thing.
Okay.
Would you take a contract from corporate-run America or from the communist government running China?
Corporate-run America?
From the aristos.
Would I take a government contract?
You'd better, or else you won't survive in business.
Well, I've worked with the U.S. Postal Service for years, and I've worked with countries over the years. Okay. In my heart of hearts, I'm not a country guy. I'm a John Lennonist, and I don't believe in country. So that's a whole another perspective. But if you ask me if I'm working on a project for entertainers from Asia, from Taiwan and Hong Kong and China for a holiday event, yes, I am working in a concert that's going to be in Radio City on next Monday.
Well, I'm working one that's going to be in Radio City on the 20th for people who are dissidents against the whole system.